Hi folks, E-Chip and Robert here. Today we're going to talk about free off-grid Wi-Fi.
So come on. Come and ride the Wi-Fi train with E-Chip and I. E-Chip?
What you doing?
Nothing. I was seeing what you were doing.
I was thinking about the Wi-Fi testing we did out there at Contentment. Debating on whether or not I'm going to try it or just go the other route, the traditional route of buying it.
Well, if you can get it, why would you buy it?
Well, that's the question. Can you get it? You want to get schooled?
School me in the basics of Wi-Fi, please. What? Damn it. E-Chip. School me in the basics of Wi-Fi.
Yes, ma'am. So, folks, the Wi-Fi is one of those things that we just take for granted nowadays. It's just in front of us all the time. Everywhere we go, we have access to it in our homes, at school, at work, in the store. And so, I mean, it is as common as air. And so, you don't really miss it until you move to a place like Contentment and don't have it, and don't have access to it. Well, one of my little pet hobbies here over the past couple of years has been in anticipation of a move like this, thinking about what we're going to do about Wi-Fi when we get out there. And I've played around with antennas and repeaters and modems and things like that, and I think I've come up with a potential solution to get free Wi-Fi when you're off the grid. Now, people will say that it cannot be done, and in fact, when I first started looking into it, a lot of people told me it couldn't be done. But I will tell you, I've actually done it. I've actually streamed movies from open sources of Wi-Fi that were free. And legally, don't get me wrong, it was done legally. And it requires some things that you may or may not choose to invest in, but if you do, it might yield you some very good results. So here are some of the issues that come into play when you live off grid and want internet access. I guess that would be like being on grid, right?
Partially.
Okay.
Semi off grid.
Right. So most people have a router in their home. Some of them have a modem built into them or whatever. And this router receives an internet signal either from a cable or from a DSL, which is over the phone line from your phone provider, or it could be from a satellite that actually broadcasts via satellite and brings it into your home. Those are the three ways most people get it. And satellite is popular among people who live out in the country or who live off grid because there aren't any phone cables coming out to them, and of course the cable provider is too far away. And to bring it in would be very, very expensive. So there is a method that's becoming much more common, particularly for folks who live in the country, and it's known as WISP, Wireless Internet Service Provider. It's basically long distance Wi-Fi that can be broadcast over many, many miles. And it requires special equipment to get it. Usually those who the providers who offer WISP want you to use their antennas and equipment to pick up the signal. And the way it works is you have an antenna on your home. This is a flat panel antenna that receives a signal from a larger radio antenna many, many miles away. And let me scoot that over. You see it? It receives a signal from many, many miles away, and it sends the packets of information back and forth. And that's how it's done. But you still have to pay a charge. There's still a monthly fee for this. And it's typically not that much, but hey, if you can get it for free, why not, right? What'd you think of that, Robert?
It was very interesting.
Interesting how?
Well, there's a lot of Wi-Fi signals around, and this thing can catch them.
It can pick them up, but we weren't able to connect to any of them.
No.
Yes. That's okay. That just takes a little pointing and making sure because you can pick up a signal, particularly if it's a low frequency signal, travel further. But being able to push a signal to them and get them to understand us and recognize us is a little different.
Well, and
It can be done.
Well, if we're lower than some of the elevation, will we not be able to see?
Sorry?
So if that antenna is lower than some of these hills maybe, will it not see it?
Yeah, that's the idea. You want to have direct line of sight with the antenna you're communicating with. It needs to be able to see you. One of the things about WISP, or radio signal internet, is that it requires that the antennas be within sight of each other. I mean, they have to have a direct signal. The signal is directional, and that means, well, literally, that it travels in one direction. So if you have an antenna, say it's giving off a signal, there are omnidirectional antennas that will send out radio waves in every direction. But then there are directional antennas, like a flat panel antenna, that you see on towers and things like that, that send out a signal in a very concentrated beam in only one direction. And those are the strongest antennas, and those are the ones that need to communicate with a tower which is sending information in every direction. So the signal has to be really strong in order to do that. It requires a lot of power. The FCC limits the amount of power you can use, so you sort of have to piggyback things and play around a little bit to get it where you want. Let's say you've got a situation where you're out here in the country and your internet service provider is either in town or the source for your internet is several miles away. And in between, you've got some land with relief on it, hills and things like that.
What about trees?
Yeah, same thing. Trees can get in the way as well because trees are filled with water, and water interferes with that radio signal. It can tend to block the radio signal. Not as bad in the winter if you have deciduous trees with fewer leaves on them, but in the summer when the trees are out, it's hard to get a reliable radio signal through a tree. So line of sight is very, very important when it comes to this kind of signaling. But let's say you've got a situation like this where you have trees, or you have buildings, or you have a hill, or something like that, or a series of hills that are between you and the source for your internet, whether it be your internet service provider over a wireless signal or something like that. A series of antennas can help you as long as they are lined up correctly to push and receive the signals. So you can have an antenna here that pushes to another on a hill, repeats that signal, and pushes it over to your source. This is kind of elaborate, and it's not the best situation, but it can be done if you need to. Let's say you live in a canyon where you're basically enclosed and it's tough to get a signal. Well, if you're down in the canyon and the receiving antenna is up on a hillside where it can receive it, then you can get it. So what are you finding there, Robert?
Nothing yet. Do I do it again?
Yeah, hit that.
So I
Let me
said
see. So
scan.
you've got the repeater hooked up to the three antennas and the one panel back there, and you found some networks.
Those might be the same ones.
Well, hit your back button and hit scan again.
Back
Let's see if
button.
the same one shows up.
It's Hug 2.
Well, that's the name of the network. There you go. That's what you want to click on. Click scan. It's right now. It's looking for wireless providers in that direction, and you found a few. All right. So let's spin the antenna around in, say, about a 270-degree pattern. Let's see what we can pick up, and see how strong the signals are. Pay attention to the strength of the signals, if you would. You see that 100%, 100%.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's see where the good signals are.
Okay.
Okay.
So Rob, you remember when we were out there, we played with high gain antennas, and we were trying to see if we could find signals
Yes.
from internet service providers out there. And we found quite a few that were many, many miles away. We were able to do it because we had a high gain antenna that could pick that up. The FCC has certain rules about private citizens who have these kinds of antennas and send and receive this data. First of all, your antenna can be no higher than 50 feet and from the ground. That's where having a hill can really come in to help you, because it has to be 50 feet from the ground, but it doesn't say it has to be 50 feet above sea level. If you can put it on a hill and have it 50 feet above the ground, you can send and receive signals from a long way away, as long as you have line of sight access to the providing antenna. The other FCC rule says that you cannot broadcast any more than 36 decibels. Now that means a combination of both your antenna and whatever equipment you're using to broadcast, whether that be a repeater, a router, anything like that. So let's say you have a flat panel antenna that will broadcast up to, say, 19 decibels. Okay? That means the strongest signal that you can turn your router or repeater up to would that be 17 decibels? Right? For a total of 36. So you have to be careful about what you're broadcasting, because the FCC can come to you if they pick up that signal. They can come to you and say you either need to turn that down or shut it down, because you can be interfering with other radio traffic. So those are some of the things that you need to keep in mind when you're doing this. But the other thing, of course, that you need to get free Wi-Fi anyway is you need someone who's willing to let you access their Wi-Fi for free. And who is willing to do that? Well, actually, there are businesses in towns. There are actually towns that broadcast an internet signal for their citizens. I've actually accessed an internet signal from in town, from the downtown part of the town where we currently live, and I've streamed movies and TV shows from it. So it can be done, but it has to be done, it takes a little tweaking, and it has to be done carefully. And then you also need to make sure you're doing it legally, because you don't want to be stealing somebody's internet. There are some folks in off-grid locations who will actually pay, a small fee to a neighbor who has internet access some distance away. A win-win for you and your neighbor, because you get internet access, he gets a little money to help him offset the cost of his internet access, and it works great. And what it requires is just simply setting up an antenna that connects to his internet service that points to you. And again, as long as you have line of sight, you're good.
Some of these low frequencies will travel, quite a distance, and you can pick them up. But when you're broadcasting, you need to make sure that you get it right on.
Very promising.
But hey, some of this stuff, but think about this, some of these signals we know are at least 12 miles away. At least 12 miles away. picking up Wi-Fi from 12 miles away. Some of them may be 20, maybe even 30 miles away. And if we have enough juice to broadcast, enough decibels, and we could broadcast a signal to them via line of sight, we have internet service. So, got a hold of the local internet provider. He's off in that distance, about 12, 13 miles. We have not picked up his tower. But that, I mean, so far as I know, but that doesn't mean we won't. Thank you, I appreciate your help.
This is so fun.
Now, what are some of the problems with this? Some of the problems with this are, number one, snooping. We all know if you go to any public place that offers free internet, they can be snooping on everything you do as you do it. They'll look at they can record everything that you're surfing, all your text messages, anything you do. If it's over their Wi-Fi signal, they could be collecting that information on you. Another potential problem is with bandwidth. Because if you have several people, say in a public place, who are using internet at a given time of day, and everybody's on there all at once, it can really slow you down. It could prevent you from surfing the internet as quickly as you wanted to. Of course, another thing would be weather, and then any structures, trees, anything like that that could be in the way. One impediment to this may be you don't want to invest in the antennas and the routers and repeaters needed to be able to gather this signal, or you don't want to fuss with it. And if you have an internet service provider who will come out and for a monthly fee will let you use their antenna and you can pick it up that way, that's great. You will often need more than one antenna, more than one router or repeater to get the signal to you wherever you are, and they're not necessarily inexpensive. I mean, you can go inexpensive, but you probably suffer if you do. And another potential downfall to this is, of course, that your free source of internet can dry up. It can go away. It can change. Businesses go out of business and shut down their internet service where you can't access it anymore, can't access the free Wi-Fi, or your neighbor moves if you're using his internet, things like that, and then you're going to have to find another provider at some point. You're going to have to repoint your antenna and see if you can find another service provider. There's one way to deal with that, and is you could install a rotor on your antenna, which will, literally turn and point the antenna to preset locations for you, where you have good open Wi-Fi signals that you can pick up from. So if one's not doing so well, you can move the antenna and pick up another. But yeah, so this is an option you may choose to explore. It can be done. It's not always easily done, but if you don't have any choice and you don't have any options, or you don't want to continually pay a service provider, then this is an option for you.